thank you for that introduction. My name is Johanna, and I'm from University College Dublin, and I'm presenting this paper today on behalf of all of my co-authors. So let's get started. What is the sense of agency? I drew this, and I can confidently say that because I picked what I wanted to draw. I picked the materials. I wanted it to be white on black, so I got the materials, and every shape I drew, every line I drew deliberately to create this. So I can say that I did this. If I would now use AI, for example, in this case ChatGPT, and ask it, can you make a drawing of a snake? This is the result in this case. None of this I really did. I didn't pick the background, I didn't pick the pattern of the snake, or the angle, or anything else. But still it was my action, or my prompt that initiated the creation of this image. But can I still confidently say that I feel like I created this image? I'm not that sure. And this is what the sense of agency is about. It is the feeling of, I did that. It was my actions creating an outcome, and this is what we're evaluating in this paper. So let's go to our first research question, which is, how is the human experience of agency affected when Gen AI provides an unexpected output? For this, we did a study with an image manipulation task. So people started off with an image, so we would set an expectation for them. And that would be manipulated by directly clicking on the image. You can see on the left image, there would be the starting image. The lion has a red dot on the nose, which would indicate the starting point. And wherever people would click within the green areas, this point would be moved to. So in this case, I clicked on top of the image. So this line was created where the nose was moved upwards by the AI and kind of created this roaring lion. It was pretty cool. So to compare different images, we had different image qualities. So the first one would be realistic images as kind of the baseline. So you can see here, based on the starting image, the resulting images are pretty much expected. They're realistic versions of the original image. And then in comparison, we have our change condition where the animal changes. So from a lion, you can see they change it to a fox, a wolf, or we had a few different wild animals during the study. So seeing this, we were then wondering if there is a difference between these two. Is it because the new image is semantically meaningful, or is it simply because the image is different? So we introduced a third condition with distorted images. So the lion that we see in the starting image still stays there, but it gets distorted, so it's still an unexpected change that's being made. And our last research question is there a difference between pictures with a clearly distinguishable semantic meaning, like the animal on the image, and just chaotic generation results? So our fourth and last condition shows abstract images, and you can see that they may be remotely related to the starting image, if you know what the starting image was like, but it's basically just chaos. It doesn't show any real animal. So those are our four conditions. And now, how do we measure agency? Because this is what we want to evaluate. Agency has these two aspects that we were both evaluating. So we have a pre-reflective agency, which is happening subconsciously to all of us all of the time. Whenever we do something which causes an outcome, which basically is all the time, this feeling is in the back of our mind. We're not aware of this, unless it might be gone. Like if you do, for example, a sudden movement, you wipe something off your table, you might realize, oh, that was not me, was that me? Like you have this like short second where you're wondering if that was you. That's kind of an example for when it's not present. And then building on top of that, we have our agency judgment, which is basically what I've been talking about at the beginning when I was trying to think or trying to tell you whether or not I feel like I created those images. It's basically people judging whether or not they have caused something or if they have created something. So for our study, the first slide you've seen before, so we have our starting image where people can click on, and after a short time interval, a new image will show up. And then we have our two measures that we took after every one of those rounds. So our first one is for the pre-reflective agency, and it's an interval estimation. So we asked the participants to estimate the interval between their click and the new image popping up. And we did that for a paradigm called temporal binding, which says that if someone experiences agency over an intentional action and its outcome, the action and this outcome would be perceived as being closer together in time. So by knowing the actual interval length and their estimation, we can see whether they over or underestimated that interval, and that would give us a hint whether or not there might be a sense of agency. The second one is our agency judgment, where we just ask people, how strongly do you feel like you created this image, and ask them to rate that on a scale. Those are our results for the pre-reflective agency. You can see the 4 conditions here that I showed you before, and you can see the mean binding, so the mean difference between the actual interval length and their estimations, and you can see the confidence interval. What we can see here is that for the realistic, changed, and distorted conditions, there's no significant difference, but for the abstract condition there is. And the abstract condition shows most binding, which suggests most implicit agency. Which is interesting because if we look at our agency judgment, the abstract condition shows the least agency, and the realistic one shows the highest one. Also, we can see here that for all of the 4 conditions, that they are actually different to each other, so we don't have this cluster that we have for the pre-reflective agency. Now we're wondering, what about the image is it that might have caused this to happen? So what we did is we went and found 4 image distance metrics, which describe how different are the images, or the resulting images, to the original images. And we have 4 metrics for that, and they can be grouped into 4 categories. So we have local global measures, where local measures take small details into account to evaluate the differences, and global measures take all the information about the image into account. And then we have low-level and high-level measures. Low-level ones look, for example, at pixel values, while the high-level ones would look at the semantic meaning of the image. So those are our 4 measures. If you want to have more information on that, I'd refer to the paper. And what they allow us to do now is to hypothesize about what our results mean that we've seen before. So I'm going to talk about 2 of those hypotheses. The first one is that pre-reflective agency is correlated with semantic image differences. If we look at our high-level metrics, which do evaluate semantic differences, we can see that the realistic change and distorted condition are kind of clustered together. Like the clusters are not really separate from each other, however, the abstract condition is. And that's a pattern we've seen for the pre-reflective agency as well. So that might suggest that if there is a high semantic change, that would result in a higher pre-reflective agency, but of course there would need to be further investigation on that. The second one is that agency judgment is correlated with local image differences. If you look at our local metrics, we can see that they are, even though they're close together, they are separate from each other, and we can see this kind of linearish shape. Which is something we have seen here before. Of course here, like in this case, this one, the x-axis is not a continuous variable, so it's not linear per se, but we can still see the correlation here. So this would basically show that less changes in, less local changes in the image would result in a higher judgment of agency. So to kind of wrap things up, what are the main contributions of the paper? Why should you go read it? So we provide those 2 measures for the sense of agency, which look at different aspects of agency, and then we additionally have those objective measures for the image distances, which allow us to hypothesize about it. And this kind of creates this really big graph that I'm not going to talk about in detail right now, where we basically compare all the different distance measures to our agency results. That's it. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to the team I got to work with. And as Paul said before, Paul is hiring, so if you're interested, go to that website and check it out. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? Awesome.
Hey, thanks so much. Really cool study. I'm wondering if maybe you haven't done this yet, but looking at eye tracking data to see where people are gazing, because one of the questions I have about the exactly.
Yeah.
But basically is sort of the task-specific attentional demands that people have. And so if you're clicking in a certain region and you've highlighted the nose being red, maybe they're forward predicting like, oh, only those pixels are the ones that I care about when I'm moving things, or like semantically the nose part. Versus if I step back and think about it afterwards, I can make some other rationalization of different potential causes and think more about like that. So I'm wondering, maybe gaze might be a way to better understand what aspects of the image are people focusing on in these different moments.
That's a great suggestion. I think you're very right that we don't know whether or not people really looked at the image in detail before they made the decision to click. So that's interesting. As a follow-up, what I'm currently working on is doing an interview study where we give them more time, and they are able to click around for as long as they want to really explore the image. And what we see there is where people start clicking, and like, for example, some of them start further to the center, and some of them start far out. So I think there we can kind of see what people are aiming for. So I don't know if that answers the question. Okay.
Any other questions? So maybe from my side, what made you decide to study these different sides of agency, pre-reflective agency and this judgment-based agency in the first place?
Yes. So as I said before, they kind of build on top of each other, and that's why I think that both of them are very relevant to look at. I know a lot of people say that the judgment is the one that's really interesting because that's the one that people care about. That's the one when you ask someone, do you feel agency or do you not? That's the one that's like coming through. But if you have this pre-reflective agency as well, like if you don't have it, then it's harder for you to feel a judgment of agency as well. So that's why I think both of them are relevant, and we have seen that the results are very different. So that clearly shows that they are influenced by different aspects of the interaction. And if we can look into how we can optimize for both of them, that would probably give us, like I hope so, that would give us the best way to improve agency generally.
Thank you. Maybe another question is like, are there any learnings for maybe designers of those systems or like people who develop those systems, like in terms of which metrics they should look at in the future when it comes to agency?
So I think the judgment, we just ask people to judge themselves. I think that's a very relevant one because that's the one that people will be talking about. But then also, like the ones I presented are basically the main ones that are being used, the most established ones. So if you don't want to like make up your own ones, I think those are the ones that should be the right ones.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.